What's up, everybody? Welcome to Couch Dimension, our video games podcast, where we're looking at video games and video game news through a legal, developer, and player lens. I, as always, am TinyBigDude. I am joined by my two co-hosts, Red
Captain?
and Captain.
Red.
There you go. They're Pokemon today.
You didn't expect a dynamic intro from me. There you go.
I didn't. You totally caught me flat-footed, and and now I don't know what to do with the rest of the show because I'm totally off guard. And now we're gonna get to game
Got your
trailer.
ass.
Game? I'm breaking down in real
game.
time.
How well game.
Love lap. We actually have a lot of news today. We had to cut a significant amount of news because of how much news we have. So I guess we'll dive right in. Starting with Red. Red, what do you got to tell us about today?
So first up, there's this little indie game called Baldur's Gate 3. I'm sure a lot of you have not heard of it. Larian, the developer for Baldur's Gate 3, has said previously, back in I think March, they're not going to be doing DLC or Baldur's Gate 4 or anything else with D&D. Reason being, who knows? There's a lot of things that could be. He was very proud of it, but they're not going to continue it. Back in March, the CEO was very, very unhappy about layoffs. In a different Eurogamer article, he had stated that he blamed job losses on corporate greed that had been fucking this whole thing up for so long.
Interesting.
But also in his Game Award post-speech tweet, he said it was sad to realize that of the people who were in the original meeting room, there's almost nobody left. So I think for Sven personally, there's a lot of animosity towards maybe Wizards of the Coast. Also, they could save tons of money by not having to license D&D again.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Were there layoffs at Larian, or was he just referring to the industry at large? Because
he was referring to the Wizards of Coast layoff.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I believe specifically that was about the team that liaisoned with Larian.
I can't imagine anyone having beef with Wizards of the Coast. They're not terrible at all. Just kidding, they're awful.
I've seen some mixed thoughts on that. In terms of like, is it Wizards of the Coast or is it Hasbro? Because Hasbro owns them.
Right, which it leads me to, I was wondering, we might not have this information available, but I would be curious to know if Larian is owned privately or if they're owned by a larger corporation.
Larian's just self-owned.
Private, okay.
Private.
That would make sense. I mean, when your CEO can openly walk out and say like, hey, I hate all this greed and shit, you'd never see that from a publicly owned company. But, I do think that there are ups and downs to this decision. And I kind of applaud them for it, weirdly. I think it's an interesting sort of artistic choice. Because on one hand, you don't have the pressure to develop anything that's going to top Baldur's Gate 3, right? You're not responsible because Baldur's Gate 3 is amazing, and I doubt that anything anyone can make for Baldur's Gate 4 will be as good. And so that pressure is off of you, and you're not going to crumble under it like, say, Portal 3 or Half-Life 3. On the other hand, you are giving up so much guaranteed money, it's crazy.
I think they know that they've got some clout as, like, the developers of Baldur's Gate 3. Their name has been out there. Everyone, like, Larian has become a far better known name. Plus, they got their own, like, I would guess that what they've learned from Baldur's Gate 3 will be rolled right into Divinity Original Sin 3. That would be my guess. That or an original IP, but, I'll keep it going. Like, because for what it's worth, like, Baldur's Gate 3 actually does have a lot of Divinity in it. Like, it is a better game than Divinity, but that just partially comes from, moving forward in time.
Yeah, I think it's kind of strange that they had to pay Wizards of the Coast. Well, I guess they're paying Wizards of the Coast not necessarily for the system as much as the IP, because Baldur's Gate is an original like Wizards of the Coast location, and that setting is all owned by them. So I guess that makes sense that they're paying for that IP more so than the system itself.
Yeah.
Because they change 5e in some really interesting ways. And also Divinity is really close to 5e.
I'm guessing they really just want that freedom to, because I bet anytime they made those changes, they got to run it by Wizards.
Oh, you know it.
And so, yeah, there are a lot of benefits with not having to associate yourself with Baldur's Gate, or not to use that world in particular. So yeah, I mean, it can be. I can see where it's a bit of a bummer, but at the same time, like, I'm excited to see what they do next. I like the world of Baldur's Gate, or Faerun, but I'm not so attached that, like, I'm more excited to see those systems in play again. So, and we will probably see that, I imagine.
Yeah, and it's a little sad too if you're a fan of any of the voice actors, because all of them are just like, I can't wait to do Baldur's Gate DLC.
Oof. Oh, that does suck.
Yeah.
And I don't really know, though, and Red, you're the only one of us that's actually played it all the way through. And I'll leave this open. You don't have to answer because, I don't want to spoil anything for myself or for anyone listening. But I don't know how open the ending leaves itself for DLC.
I'll tell you this, there's an epilogue that they added in a patch, so you can take that for what it's worth.
I do want to say that when it comes to DLC, this isn't exactly unique for Larian. I don't believe Original Sin 2, like, outside of its updates, got hard like DLC.
Yeah.
They tend to just support through updates and then let it go. Now, what I am interested in, is there any word read on any more updates coming?
I believe there's one more decently sized patch coming soon that I don't have the notes on in front of me. But I don't know of much else beyond that, because they've already done like almost all of the big stuff. I do think, if I remember, I think the newest patch is going to have expanded bad guy endings.
Okay. I was hoping we might get It was a long shot, but since Original Sin 2 had a campaign creator, I was kind of hoping we might get one. But, it's different when you're working with someone else's property. I'm sure. And it's a lot. That's a lot to make.
To the point brought up in chat that, Michael Kibui says it's not that they had to pay Wizards, it's the idea that a big chunk of change goes directly to Wizards for the use of their IP. I actually do think I remember seeing something vaguely. I tried to find it just now, but I couldn't, so this could be wrong. But I vaguely remember them actually having to pay a lump sum to Wizards of the Coast, in addition to probably a percentage fee of whatever Baldur's Gate makes. So it's definitely, I think, a big monetary concern for Larian. Now that they've got this like Game of the Year under their belt, right? You can go make your own IP and keep 100% of the profits. Because if I remember correctly, it was when the game came out, there was some statement about how big of a gamble it was for them because of how expensive the IP was to get to use. But yeah, best of luck to them in whatever they do next. And God bless the poor sons of bitches that have to make Baldur's Gate 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Wizard says they are looking for partners and that their bar is very high.
I wouldn't be surprised if they hit up, I actually don't remember the company name, the people making the Pathfinder games. Wouldn't surprise me.
A weird choice could possibly be, maybe not weird, but a choice could definitely be BioWare.
I could see...
These days, I think Obsidian's the more likely choice. BioWare's in they that's a whole can of worms.
I could actually really see, and this is going to be the second week in a row that I forget the name of this company. Captain, you'll have to remind me. The folks that make XCOM.
I could have told you now. I can't remember.
You literally had it for me immediately last week when I couldn't remember. But I could see them, since they've done, Midnight Suns, I could totally see them stepping up and doing Baldur's Gate 4.
The reason I'm looking specifically at Obsidian and the Pathfinder people is those are specifically because Obsidian made the Pillars of Eternity games. And so, I'm looking at CRPG creators.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
People that have directly adapted tabletop before. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because that's where White Larian went into doing Baldur's Gate 3. Actually, I think he gave you the last.
So did Larian not make Baldur's Gate 2?
It's Firaxis makes that stuff.
No. Baldur's Gate 2 is a much, much older game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's like 25 years old or something, right? Like it's pretty crazy.
And it's back in the isometric time of you can't rotate the camera. Which is very similar to that's how
hey
Pillars
gang
of Eternity does.
Hey gang, get this. Baldur's Gate 2 is developed by BioWare.
Oh. Damn, Red, you were right on the mark there, huh?
I just don't know BioWare, the last CRPG they made is no, not Knights of the Old Republic. I don't know that they did Knights of the Old Republic too.
But
they made partially worked up.
It's not like BioWare don't need the money though.
Oh yeah, it's just to say that BioWare, that's outside of their current wheelhouse. Or plus they've had quite their share of troubles. So the moment I think it's just trying to get a Dragon Age out the door. Or Mass Effect.
Or really anything that will make them any amount of money. But yeah, speaking of making more money, it seems that Sony might be wanting to do that. Captain, you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, Ghost of Sushi-Ma comes out May 16th on PC. It's going to have all the content from the PS5 version, including DLCs and stuff. And it'll have crossplay with PS5 and PS4 versions of the game. And all that's really neat. I am excited that's coming. I haven't finished the whole game because there are a million games, but I played enough of it to give it a high recommendation. It was a lot of fun. And I'm definitely going to take another look at that multiplayer when it gets a renewed audience then. But what I'm particularly interested in is that it will be coming with from PlayStation, or according to PlayStation, a quote, new PlayStation overlay, which, it's going to be if anyone has used the Xbox Game Bar, it had, it kind of tries to emulate a little bit of the UI experience of being on Xbox, or at least bring those features to PC in a way that, how to put it, weaves them together, I guess. Like a party chat. You can join an Xbox Live party chat through PC, and you'll be able to do similar things with this overlays. Manage your friends list. It's going to be used for crossplay stuff. Manage trophies, just like you manage your achievements with the game bar on PC. And to me, that particularly says that what they've done so far has been paying off for them, and PlayStation is continuing to invest time and resources in building a bigger base on PC. And I would be on the lookout for more announcements for games coming to PC. It looks like they are happy with what they've done so far and want to keep digging in. And I can think of a game in particular called Bloodborne that I'd love to see on PC. So we'll see. But yeah, I'd be on the lookout for more exclusives to make their way to PC over time.
I tell you what, I'm sitting in the Japanese restaurant, right? And I feel a splash on the back of my neck. And I turn around, there's nothing there. I call it the ghost of Sushi-Ma.
Yeah, so Captain, is
Your
Ghost of
legs must be
Tsushima
tired after that walk.
You can't get rid of me, bitches. I'm hosting the show from my computer. I say when we go live. I say what fish puns I get to make. Fuck you. Fuck all of you.
That was bad. Fuck. Okay.
But Red, I think you were about to actually move into a
Wizard,
salient
release me!
No, I was gonna ask: is Ghost of Tsushima more ninja or more samurai?
Far more samurai. Well, okay. Without digging in the deepest, it's kind of a part of the struggle for the main character, because it seems adhering to the path of the samurai means like facing your opponent and being honorable, and that doesn't go great. So a big part of the game is like him coming to terms with, yeah, you gotta be sneaky, gotta kill dudes who didn't even know you were there. And, the idea of how much does honor matter? Because it sure doesn't seem to matter that much when you're dead. And no, that's a major component. There's still, if you are looking for ninja vibes, you will still get them. But it is like coming from the point of view of the character as a samurai.
Okay, I can vibe a lot more with ninja gameplay than I can with more of a samurai gameplay. So I might actually pick it up.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I actually didn't realize that game had so much characterization and push and pull between like mechanics and story. That's a really cool way to tell a story in a video game. It sounds. I've really got to check this out now.
Yeah, it's a good time. And it's beautiful. That game is beautiful. It's going to look great on PC. I'm becoming a Ghost of Tsushima shill right now, but no, it's definitely worth a look. It's neat. And
I tell you what, once I kill Captain, he'll be the ghost of Shill Seam.
I can't get as mad. My brain was actively working on that one as well.
I'm sorry. I cut off something actually important.
No, I was just going to say, if you check it out, now this is a recommendation I have not done myself yet, but I have heard really great way to play that game. Put it on, I want to say it's one of the higher difficulties. Instead of it's not just like one of those, oh, the enemies are going to take more hits now, and you take less or whatever. No, it's everyone dies in just like a hit or two. So it's so that the idea is you're doing sword fights, and sword fights might end real quick sometimes. I've heard it's a really fun way to play that game.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I do have to point out, on a serious note, I feel like all I've contributed to this conversation is bad puns. It seems that maybe, as much as they like to ignore them and pretend like they're not there, it seems maybe Sony's looking over Xbox's shoulder a little bit, copying the homework.
Yeah.
Realizing that, expanding the market, sort of horizontally as well as vertically is probably a good idea, and making your games more accessible to PC players is generally a good way to sell games.
Sorry,
you go ahead.
I was going to say, like, whether they find much success in it or not, at the end of the day, I think they'd be fools to ignore what their most direct competitors doing and not try in some way to, see if it could work for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I do think, too, that, like, it makes the PC, more so than ever before, the machine for gaming enthusiasts. Which, like, it should be. If I spend thousands of dollars on this machine, then it should play all the games. Now, we just got to get Nintendo on board. Never going to.
I was about to say, I wouldn't hold my breath for Nintendo.
Yeah, 25 years, maybe.
I mean, all you need to do is download Yuzu.
More on that actually later in the show. We've got some interesting emulator news, but But yeah, like 25 years from now, Pikmin 1 will release on PC.
Oh man. Oh, I kind of want a PC Pikmin release because then someone's gonna crank up in a mod like the max number of Pikmin you can have or some shit like
Oh,
that.
hell yeah. And then also, like, actually, mouse and keyboard seems like the ideal way to play Pikmin because it's sort of vaguely an RTS, and all RTSs are better on mouse and keyboard. I'm going to be really excited in 25 years.
I was still thinking about just walking into a boss fight with 1,000 Pikmin.
Well, unless y'all have anything else to add on that one, I think we're ready to move on to our next topic. See, you two got like sort of, I'd say that the Larian thing's kind of bittersweet, and the ghost of Sushi-Ma.
Sushi-Ma.
I know. I was doing a
got it. Okay.
I'd say that is kind of like good news, and I have to, in the role of the lawyer, often come in with the bad news. This is why people love us.
Honestly, this is one of the through lines for our show so far. So
yeah. So in a turn of events that was entirely foreseeable, Ubisoft is now stripping people of their license to play The Crew. The Crew is Ubisoft's open-world racing game released in 2014. The Crew 2 now exists, so it's been kind of like defunct, I guess, for a little while as far as no one's actively working on it. But, it kind of makes sense normally for a game this old, like we heard about with Mario Maker, which, by the way, I meant to bring this up. This is totally an aside, I'm sorry. Team 100% completed their objective. They beat Trimming the Hedges, and they 100%ed Mario Maker 1 like 4 days before it went offline.
Nice.
Talking about bringing games offline brought it to mind. But yeah, it's not unusual to see that, right? It's like no one's playing the game anymore. You got to take the servers down. But most of the time what happens there is that the servers go down, and then fans, if they like the game enough, will create their own servers, and they will host it themselves. And you never lose the actual game when the servers are taken down. But now you are, because Ubisoft is completely revoking your license to play The Crew, which means that if you bought the game and you bought the DLC, it will now be moved to an inactive tab of Steam, and you will not be able to play it. If you launch the game, it won't open, and if you go and actually launch it directly from the program file, it only pulls up the demo version of the game.
Great.
This is fucking terrible. And like, we talked about, if you want to hear more about this, these ownership concepts, right? Direct ownership versus like owning a license. Go check out episode 4. We did a kind of a deep dive on that whole topic in that episode. And so, yeah, go listen to that if you're a little confused on how they're able to do this or through what legal mechanisms this is allowed. But that said, I see, this is the case of a 10-year-old game, and I don't really know how many of the Crew fans that are out there. I've never played it. But I can see this being adopted more widely in the industry to terrible results, effectively allowing companies to rewrite their own history and allowing games like, say, Redfall to just be erased.
I wouldn't be surprised if Ubisoft is doing this to test waters, because it's just The Crew. Like, people are upset, and rightfully so. But I also don't know, and I could be speaking on my ass here, I don't know how popular The Crew was.
Yeah, it seems like people are more pissed off on principle than on...
Yeah, more on principle. But that kind of leads to the idea of, like, this could be a test run. And that's not a good feeling. Because I don't know why else you would care. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but it seems
I would genuinely be curious to know if Crew was somewhat popular or nichely popular, because Redfall wasn't even nichely popular.
No, there's like one guy playing it.
So like that's just a huge savings in not having to pay server costs for Redfall anymore. But if If the game was like very nichely popular, then it's kind of a big middle finger.
Well, actually, I do have to say I just looked up the Steam charts for The Crew, and actually, I'm not quite sure when they took it offline, so that might impact this a little bit. Let me go back to when I know it was online a year ago. Average players 27.3, peak players of 93. So yeah, they picked one that no one gave a shit about.
Now I realize this affects more than just PC players, but I can't help but remember our another shout out to in chat now, Michael Kiwi, that he has told me many a time he will not buy an Ubisoft game on PC on principle.
Yeah, and he's right to
And
do
maybe
so.
we need to extend that further. But I mean, you know what? I'm not playing Skull and Bones on principle. It's a boycott I started before I even heard the story, really, because I'm just that principled.
Yeah, I'm principled in that I won't allow myself to play bad games.
Yes,
Absolutely. I was going to say, not playing Skull of Bones isn't the brag you think it is.
Yeah. So
I've been saying it. I've been saying it since I heard about the game. Man, I won't play this because of Ubisoft's practices. That was always what I said.
Don't you want to grind on the ocean? That's what I heard about the game anyway, is that it was just really grindy and
I
like
will just play Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. I don't know why they saw Sea of Thieves and said, let's go for them, and then made the garbage that they did. But
I mean, I have some fun details there, but that kind of deserves like let me get back to you in a week or two's time.
you want to do a Skull and Bones episode?
I have some fun details you might like to know, but I don't really want to off the cuff like try to break into a story, you know?
We should do a whole episode on like failed games and their stories, right? Like we could do Redfall, we could do Skull and Bones. I know this is like kind of talking shop mid-podcast here, but I just think that could be a fun idea to do a whole episode devoted to various games that shat the bed.
You know, if only BioWare made a mech game.
Yeah, I mean, I think
this is the second week in a row.
The second week in a row that Anthem has been alluded to.
You didn't even actually. Oh yeah, you haven't actually said its name either time. We just know it's. I just know it's.
Last week I was editing the episode and you said something about them having a game with Iron Man mechanics, and I was like, "What the hell is he talking about?" And yes, it was Anthem. It was Anthem all along.
You know, if BioWare made a Iron Man mechanic inspired mech suit game, that would just fly off the shelves and be super popular and would still be running today as a live service money making machine. But it's not there, so clearly they never made that game.
Yeah, that's another one that I wouldn't be surprised to see the license get pulled for. But yeah, thank you for letting me share the bad news. Fight for your ownership. I would say buy from Good Old Games, but I went and looked up their policy, and they also only sell you a license. So we're fucked.
It sucks, man.
Not much else to say on that one, I don't think, unless Captain, you just had a thought.
Yeah, I mostly just had a thought that I wanted to find Red's original Anthem review in a Discord, and I believe he has edited it because it says overall I'd say it's a 5.5 out of 10, but I know that used to be an 8. You can't change my memory.
Man, I don't even remember writing it.
He has revoked your license to that review.
He sure has. Because it says on the post that it's been edited.
With that, how about Red? We move into a little bit more discussion about emulators.
Yeah. So kind of somewhat big news, but also kind of sort of Apple just trying to use a the spray can on a raging fire. Emulators, retro gaming emulators, are now permissible on the iOS App Store. Back on April 5th, there was an update that allowed game emulators to be submitted to the App Store globally, so long as they comply with all applicable laws, which seems to read like they would probably ban apps that provide a direct avenue to like ROMs and ISOs. This may have been because of their antitrust lawsuit about their illegal monopoly that is basically most American citizens and not much else in the world, not many of the other citizens of the world. But they're also facing a lawsuit in Europe over many a myriad things that make a lot more sense. But it's kind of neat because for the longest time, you would have to either sideload or jailbreak your iPhone to use emulators. And when this first came out, when they first let this happen, someone just blatantly ripped off the de facto iOS emulator, Delta, specifically the GBA for iOS, which would have been just the Game Boy Advance emulator. Uh-huh. And they had ads like all over it. They put it on there, a bunch of ads, and they just waited until Apple forced it off. And the Riley Testa, the guy that actually makes the Delta app, he took a little time, got it ready for being on the actual App Store because he had been maintaining it for a long time as a sideloading thing. And if you don't know what sideloading is, it was basically a way to get unofficial apps on your phone without jailbreaking, but it's very like convoluted. You basically have to reapprove a certification like every 15 to 30 days or something, depending on what certification it has.
I've used sideloading on my MetaQuest before. If I'm not mistaken, isn't the general idea that you register as a developer and then you essentially download the app as a development app and then you can use the app?
Yeah, that's the general idea. But I don't know how it works on every other system, but on iOS at least, you do have to aggravatingly
because Apple's a bitch.
You have to renew that every so often. And it used to be like 2 months, and then it was 30 days, and then there was like a difference in what developer license you have. If it's the free one, you got to do it every 10 days. If it's the paid one, you can do it every month. Very aggravating.
I never fooled around much with side loading on my phone, but it did occur to me like back, say, it's a little ways back now. Last time I was doing like iOS development on my phone, I was like, hey, wait a minute, this could be used for like the thought occurred to me. I didn't know if there was actually. I assumed maybe someone had taken advantage, but I didn't know for sure.
So I actually do want to talk about this. I want to use this topic to springboard into a little discussion about the legal aspect of emulators. So if you remember from our episode where we talked about the Yuzu lawsuit and how Yuzu folded immediately, Red, you made a comment to me that there was a case out there that said that emulators were allowed. And that was news to me then, but I've since looked it up, and I want to kind of give an update on that situation. So, if you're hearing this and you've heard the Yuzu thing, you're like, well, why does Yuzu get in trouble for it, but Delta doesn't? And that all boils down to this one case from 2000 called Sony Computer Entertainment versus Kinetics Corp. Or Kinetics Corp, sorry. And essentially what this case said is that if you reverse engineer a product, it isn't copyright infringement as long as the copying of the code that is protected under copyright is intermediate and none of that code appears in the final product. And that intermediate copying is necessary to gain access to the functional elements of the software itself. And that it then qualifies under a variety of other fair use factors that I won't go into because this is an alternate dimension controlled by a maniacal wizard that is forcing me to talk about video games, and this is not a law school classroom. But, so, with that in mind, This is pretty much the only case out there on emulation as far as seminal cases go. This is the one that everybody points to. If you Google, emulator case law, this is what comes up. I know because that's what I Googled before this episode.
Yeah, that's kind of what Dolphin has and other emulators have always pointed to and hinged on.
Right. And this is a case from the year 2000, 24 years ago. And it's not even a Supreme Court decision. This is from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Brief civics lesson for those of you who may not know. In America, the justice system essentially has various ways that you can create law. One of those is common law, where a judge says something, and then that's the law. This can be, overruled by the legislature. They kind of have more authority to actually create laws than judges do. The important thing to know is that we have 12 different circuits, and 12, and then the DC, I think, makes 13. But anyways, I'm getting too in the weeds. I'm sorry, y'all. 12 different circuits, and what one of these circuits rules is only law for their circuit. So the Ninth Circuit says one thing. If someone were to bring this case in front of the Fifth Circuit and they reached a different decision, well, then now we have what's called a circuit split. And that is typically resolved by the Supreme Court that says, okay, well, now here's the law for everyone. So my point in bringing all of this up is simply to say that this one case from the year 2000 is kind of a really flimsy thing to hang your hat on for the entire emulator industry. And I think that the same case brought today might reach a different outcome because some of the factors are different.
Developers, we went into computer science. We're just doing the best we can out here.
I mean, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. This is kind of legal technical, and I'm only bringing it up because I just kind of found it interesting into how it plays into the broader discussion. But yeah, no, I mean, you're 100% right. Is like, if you're not a lawyer, then reading all of this and making heads or tails of it is quite difficult. And especially if you're someone making an emulator, you're typically not doing that for money. And so you probably don't have a lawyer on retainer that you can run this stuff past.
Unless you have a Patreon.
Unless you have a Patreon, and then Nintendo comes for you.
Let's get to the real shit. What's your favorite circuit cord?
Sure. I only know my least favorite, and that's the Fifth Circuit, because they're the most conservative.
Fake circuit cord fan. Exposed.
But just to finish this point here, back in the day, to run that Kinetics emulator, you actually had to buy a physical PlayStation disc. You had to buy the game still. Mm-hmm. Now, most things are done through ROMs, and while those are separate from the emulator itself, I just think that we're kind of in different waters than we were 24 years ago. And I think the Yuzu lawsuit really points that out because of the introduction of DRM, and, the things being protected under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA, kind of changes that mix. So all I'm saying is I love emulators. Please keep making them. But let's just hope that no one cares enough to sue you. And I think that that's the reason it's not happening, right? Is because, Nintendo's not selling this shit anyway. Yeah. So what's the ROI on bringing a $100,000 lawsuit or more, to change law that doesn't really impact you at all? But anyways, I'm done with the law spiel. The law shack, the law office, that's the word, is officially closed.
The law office.
Yeah, if I think what is the huge difference between Yuzu and these older systems is that a Nintendo Switch has a type of DRM, like you alluded to, that was, I forget what the exact
prod keys
terminology. Yeah. Prod keys, that's it. And you needed actually that to use the Yuzu emulator, and that wasn't. You didn't actually middleman the code. It was literally the prod key.
Right.
And I believe that would have been that is a huge issue there that would not have been covered in that older case. And so I can see why maybe if you easily came to that conclusion with, to be fair, minimal research, I think any lawyer retained for Yuzu's protection would come to that conclusion pretty quick.
Oh yeah, and I'm not. I should make this abundantly clear. I'm not a copyright lawyer. In fact, like patent and copyright law is a very specific area of law that is. You have to do a lot of research. You have to be an expert in that, and those lawyers practice pretty exclusively that area of law. So this is just my base understanding from reading a couple of cases, right? So I think, Red, to your point, that's exactly right. Like if you retained somebody who knew what they were talking about. More than I do, they would probably reach a similar conclusion and probably find more ways that you're fucked, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well then, speaking of ripping things off and blatantly stealing, Cap, you want to talk about Pal World?
I do want to talk about Pal World, but I might not have to say what you think I do. So Pal World's developer, Pocket Pair, their CEO tweeted that how Chinese companies like Tencent were making Pal World clones, for lack of a better word. The tweet translated is, Tencent is making a Pal World clone game. In China, many companies are simultaneously developing mobile clones to Pal World, and budgets are in the 10 billion yen range, 10 times larger than Pal World's. Next year, we might see many Genshin Impact level creature or Bishoujo raising games. These are incredible times. Now, our source for that quote, and what initially put it on our docket, was this IGN article about it, in which the headline is, after Pal World was accused of ripping off Pokemon, its CEO has accused other companies of making Pal World clones. Now, so as it said in that headline, it got accused of ripping off Pokemon. And in the article, in the IGN article, they actually have some comparisons you can go through and see between the Pals and the Pokemon. And where they try to put the more egregious ones towards the end, they start with more reasonable comparisons where it's like, yeah, this is close, but you could say it was its own thing. But then towards the end, it's like, okay, this is clearly taken from Pokemon. What I find interesting about this article is where it makes missteps. Because, so, IGN and Insider Gaming, that I'm not as familiar with, in their coverage, they both made headlines that said that Pal World's CEO accused these companies of making clones. That was their wording. And the CEO has then called them out for their wording. In a Forbes article on the topic, Paul Tassi has said that, and I hope I don't butcher the CEO's name, Takuro Misube, clarified his comments were meant to frame the issue positively, actually. He said, and once again, I believe this is translated, to accuse someone of something means they're doing something wrong. I don't think what Tencent is doing is wrong. Followed by, I'm proud that other companies want to make games like Pal World. The industry historically innovates when we borrow ideas from games we love. I'm surprised that many high-quality mobile games are already in development. Now, I differ from Paul on his interpretation. He's chalking up the errors in translation the errors to translation and cultural differences, but I suspect there's more at play here. I have watched constantly, since Pal World blew up, there have been people gunning for it. There are people who fucking hate Pal World and want it torn down. And I think there are two major reasons. Three technically, but it's kind of tied in with the first. My first reason, it's a Pokemon clone, or it's been accused of being a Pokemon clone, and a successful one at that. Because there have been Pokemon clones for years. People didn't give a fuck. But this one's got some success under its belt. And a lot of people reported it as a possible Pokemon killer. And Pokemon fans are weird. They get intense. Not all Pokemon fans, but come on, we all know. There's some weird ones. But also, in a more generalized complaint is, if you play video games, you are familiar with cheap asset flips. And it looks like a low-effort asset flip. And those games generally don't do well. They're seen as scams. And so to see one of these rise up and succeed in spite of all of that feels like there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
But there isn't, as far as we can tell. They haven't been accused, like, in an official capacity. There's been no finding of wrongdoing. There's been no complaint from Game Freak. There's been, like, as far as people can tell, none of the assets were, like, straight ripped from Pokemon or anything. And I'd say, moreover, Power World, like, it's a messy game. Like, the guns are there because they thought Westerners would be attracted to having guns, and they were right. Like, it's not the most... It doesn't have a fine point to say, but there is a bit of satire there in terms of, like, well, you capture Pokemon, they do what you want, so, isn't that kind of... Are we doing slavery here? And it's more explicit in Power World of, that is what you're doing. And so, like, if you're gonna satirize a thing, yeah, you're gonna make it look like the other thing. Now, to be fair, yeah, it does look like they stole some designs. But technically, the CEO's correct. Like, there are fighting game series that started as straight rip-offs of Street Fighter, and now are huge. Like, it's a in a more modern context, let's look at games like Shadow of Mordor that are clearly taking things from, like, the Arkham games, which that was a little bit more understandable because, Warner Brothers own that, but, like, clearly taking from Assassin's Creed that Ubisoft owns, and all to say, like, all of these things aren't really, like, the reasons people get mad at Power World, they've been done in other things. And I find the particular wording of IGN article and Insider Gaming's article's headlines, they are leaning into this idea that this group, these developers, stole from Pokemon, and now look at the audacity. Now they're being stolen from. And isn't that karmatic in some way? Isn't that... No. And I guess I care about this kind of thing because... Oh, and I should add, Power World isn't even a Pokemon-like game. It's mostly a base builder / factory game. But I do find, like, people are weird. And I say that in terms of, like, people are intense. They send threats. And I think there is a genuine, like, danger to the idea of, like, you're kind of building these people up as villains still. And they haven't done anything villainous.
Yeah.
And I don't love that. But I think more than anything else, like, IGN could have reached out for comment. They could have had the CEO clarify his comments. And they did not. And I think more than anything else, the story, for me, ended up being something very different than we thought it would be.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Sorry I kind of went on, but...
We put it on the run of show. I put it on the run of show because I thought that exact thing. I was like, oh, isn't that a fun sort of karmic thing, right? Yeah. Oh, you steal and now you're mad at thieves. But instead...
It's satisfying.
Yes.
It's a satisfying narrative.
But instead, I think I'm glad you did your due diligence on this, because you're right. Like, game design is iterative. There's a quote that inspired one of the members of the band The Replacements. And I've tried to figure out where the quote is from, but the article that will tell me is locked behind a paywall. So I'm just going to say the quote and let you know that it's not mine. And it is relating to music. And it's, you're either a genius or a clever thief. And the people that made Power World are clever thieves. Because what are they good at? They had a system. They had a series of mechanics that worked really well and made a satisfying game. They're less good at the originality part, maybe. I mean, and like you said, it's very possible that it feels
satire. Very creatively bankrupt when you look at it. At the end of the day, it made something that compelled people to want to play it. Yeah. And they had fun with it.
And I think that it's sort of akin to, like, what if someone made a movie using only Barbie and G.I. Joe dolls, and that movie won an Oscar? Not Best Picture, mind you, just an Oscar for editing or something, right? It's like, you can still do something great with this medium, even if that medium appears to be directly ripped off. It's not always about who has the most original designs. It's about who has the best gameplay. And that's something they understood. And so, I don't know. I'm with you on that. I think it's cool. And it's cool that he's, like, acknowledging that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah. No, like, it's... I found it frustrating, I guess. That just... Like, I don't blame people for necessarily, like, attaching or seeing that narrative there and running with it, because that is, like, it is a strong narrative. It is compelling to want to see someone who stole, or allegedly, or is being accused of stealing, like, then be like, oh no, this guy stole from me. I mean, how many times, if you want the satisfying version of it, because we see it a lot these days, are like the people who get into AI art and how they're artists, and then it's, oh, another guy stole my model. It's, but what'd you build your model on, bud? And so, we get to see versions of this. I understand how compelling it is, how satisfying it can feel. But at the end of the day, I think that IGN and other, like, news outlets should do a better job. I think that is the biggest point of failure here. Follow up.
Absolutely.
Or that going on record to say that I think clone games are good is exactly what I would say if I was slightly worried about Nintendo coming after me for everybody accusing me of cloning their game.
I mean, it wouldn't.
I mean, yeah. But I'm glad to see ideological consistency, right?
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that perspective as long as you're ideologically consistent with it. The thing
it's way more frustrating for the people who aren't. They're like, yeah.
Which I will say this, and that is that I am sure that Nintendo paid a room full of lawyers for about 2 weeks to try to find something to sue them over.
Honestly, with the way people glommed on to, like, attacking it, not to say Nintendo didn't do that. It's more to say I don't know that Nintendo needed to, because people were ready. People were trying hard, going through assets, trying to find, were any of them stolen from Pokemon? They were ready to report.
Oh yeah. They were trying their damnedest to get that data.
Yeah, no, it was a little nuts. Like, even, I would argue, even if they stole, I had to do Nintendo's work for them. What are you doing? What the fuck are you doing?
Absolutely. Let their engineers waste their fucking time.
Exactly. Nintendo and Game Freak are not these small companies that need you to help them. Like, all to say, Pokemon's not going fucking anywhere.
Yeah. They will
And
continue.
Absolutely not.
They will continue to make mediocre games.
Hey,
It's so frustrating.
Pikachu's still pretty cute, though.
That's true. They've been riding on that one for a while now. Now I would like to move on to our final story for the day. And that is something that is actually, this is hugely important. So if you have turned your ears off, turn them back on. I need to draw your attention to this.
Hold on.
Uh-huh.
Fuck you if you turned your ears off in my segment.
Hold on. Hold on. Is the law office opening back up?
The law office is
The law office.
No, for
Please.
legal reasons, the law office is still closed. This is just me, your friend TinyBigDude, telling you this.
Yes.
I need to preface this entire segment with, this is not legal advice. I'm going to tell you what I did. I'm going to allow you to draw your own conclusions. So, this article comes to us, which, by the way, I totally just realized I completely forgot to cite my source previously for the Ubisoft thing for the crew. That was from PC Gamer. Sorry, PC Gamer. I at least I caught it, right? And this is from Polygon. Discord has changed their terms and services to include a mandatory arbitration clause. So what that means is that you cannot sue Discord if you agree to these terms and conditions. It means that you are forced to go through a process called arbitration. What's arbitration, you might ask? Arbitration is where you hire a guy to sit in a room and then you both yell at him about what you think is right, and then he says, you're right, and then that's the end of the story. You don't get to go to court. You don't get to be in front of a judge. You don't get really due process in the same way. And it also means, and this is the important part, you cannot sign on to a class action lawsuit. So class action lawsuits, for those who might not know, is when a bunch of people sue a company for something fucked up they did. Right now, there are parents of abused children filing a class action lawsuit against Discord because their children were groomed and sexually abused through the platform. So Discord's answer to that is not to change their policies and make the platform safer. It's to say, fuck you, next time this happens, you're going through the arbitrator. Arbitration is an expensive process, and typically nothing is going to systemically change because of it. So, here's my call to action for the day. You can opt out of this mandatory arbitration. You have 30 days from April 15th to do so, which means that May 14th or 15th, depending on my math, I've never been good at counting, it's your last day to opt out. Look, I do law, I don't do math. So go do it now. And I'm going to read you the text of the email that I sent to this email account. It's arbitration opt-out at discord.com. I'll put it in the show notes when I upload it. And this is the text of my email. And again, this is not legal advice. I'm just telling you what I did, and you can do the same. I, insert legal name here, am writing to opt out of Discord Inc.'s arbitration clause per the opt-out provision in Discord Inc.'s Terms and Service Agreement published on March 15th, 2024, and adopted on April 15th, 2024. If you have any questions, you may reach me at my email. And so send that, use your legal name, or I sent it using my legal name, put it that way. And the arbitration opt-out provision has no, like, you don't need to, it doesn't say you need to include your handle. It doesn't say you need to do this or do that. It really just says send an email to this email address. That's the email I sent. You are free to craft your own. There are people that have drafted sample opt-out emails or letters that include a little bit more information than I put in mine. You're free to use one of those. In fact, the Polygon article cites one of those created by the NCLC. So if you want to use that, use that.
Polygon article on this today. Nice.
So, anyways, that's the serious part of the show. I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. And thank you, Michael Huey, for putting that in in our newsroom so that we could talk about this on air because I think it's very important. And yes, and keep in mind, this is a limited time thing. You need to go do this now. Do it while I'm talking about it.
You might think, oh, this would take a lot of work, but you just heard me do it.
There you go. On air. Hell yeah. Yeah.
I did it in real time because
Literally.
I thought it would be funnier that way.
It is. It is. Less than 5 minutes of your time. And keep in mind, even if you're thinking, oh, well, I would never, regardless, like, I don't have the money to hire a lawyer. I would never sue Discord because it'd be too much work.
You'd rather have the option.
You'd rather have the option, and you might want to be a part of a class action where all you have to do is give some lawyer you don't know your name, and they go do all the work, and you get $15 later. But it punishes companies for bad behavior. And don't let Discord slip out from under you. Honestly, I've been very disappointed in what's been going on at Discord since I believe that company ownership changed hands at one point, and they might be working on an IPO to go public. I didn't research that. That's just sort of in the minutia of my brain. Could be right, could be wrong. But the point is, Discord, when it started, I felt was a little more ideologically pure, and now it is about shareholder value. And they are going to maximize shareholder value at your expense. So go opt out of that bullshit. Well, boys.
For sure.
Anyone have anything to add to that super funny segment? Ha ha ha.
My sides are killing me.
We've all had fun here today. But let's remember what really matters. That through support of you, Twitch viewers, we're able to use Discord here in the couch dimension. We don't know how it works, but we're happy that you help us to do so. I don't know. Is that better?
Perfect. Yeah. So, I think that wraps the news part of our show. We're a little over time, but we do have a couple of trailers if you guys are good with watching them. It'd probably take 3-4 minutes. Let me get that technical thing pulled up, and then let me know when you guys are ready, and I'll swap us over to the video zone. Here we go. Only 2 trailers today, but it's been a while since we did trailers. Remember when we used to do trailers? So, I want to bring that back, and we got 2 good ones here, so let's give it a go.
There are many tales of Middle-earth. Tales of courage and brave deeds in dark times. But that is not our story. For this is one of new beginnings.
I like this art style. I don't know how I feel about the actual hobbits themselves.
Yeah. I saw this and immediately thought of you, though, because you're probably our resident Lord of the Rings.
I loved Gollum. By the way, sorry for blasting everyone with the audio from that. Whoops.
I'm sorry. Were you saying that Tiny was the resident Lord of the Rings fan?
He's been the most vocal about it.
I'm gonna be real with you. I've only ever seen the movies, but they're good movies. But I watch them pretty frequently because
Red really fumbled on that one. Ignore the man who read the books.
Who cares about reading? Reading's for nerds.
Yeah, we play video games like real men.
These are our tales of the Shire.
I'm not uninterested.
Yeah, no, it looks like a cool, Stardew Valley 3D, set in the Lord of the Rings universe. I'm on board.
Amazing creatures.
Yeah, I'm interested, but I'm like you. The art style is kind of.
The faces are kind of getting to me, but
Peggy,
I like the rest of it. Okay, so now we're seamlessly transitioning to our next video.
Peggy 18.
This is the first time I'm seeing this.
Trebuchet! Trebuchet! Trebuchet
Everybody
superiority.
loves a good trebuchet.
Fuck a
Oh my
catapult.
god, I just remembered Trebuchet memes.
I know, right?
I feel old. My bones.
Oh shit!
I always dreamt of leaving this place.
Henry's back, baby! I guess that
I
spoils
know.
some of the first one for me, but
Becoming more than a peasant.
I'm fine with it. I love Henry. He's a great
Apologies.
character.
Fuck that guy.
Wait, they didn't kill him, did they? No. Okay, that's somebody else.
That's a
that killed him.
different dude.
I was gonna say, if they killed Henry in the trailer, I would be pissed.
Spoilers for the game that hasn't come out yet.
Congratulations, Sir Knight. You finally become a man.
Wake up! Pull yourself together, Henry.
I'm getting hyped, boys. That's so many combatants on screen.
Nobody will hand anything on a platter.
I mean, let's be real. The reason this is on the agenda is I want to see your live reaction.
Your work is done.
Hear it.
You can pet the dog. That
You
one
can pet
Twitter
the
user
dog.
is really gonna love this game.
Oh, this looks fucking sick.
So yeah, you're gonna be watching that gameplay reveal later, I
Merciful
imagine.
God,
Oh yeah, I will.
be kind and protect us, so we don't blow our arses off. Amen.
What's so cool about this is that it looks like they're taking, like, because they're not a huge studio, right? So the first Kingdom Come is in a lot of ways, like, you're seeing the concept, but it could, of course, have more polish on it. And so this looks like there is more polish there, which seems awesome.
Yeah,
I'm
no, it definitely
curious-
looks more polished than the previous.
I'm really curious how they're going to do, like, because a big part of Kingdom Come is that you literally start as a refugee and you build up to being, like, a knight, right? So that's already happened. So how are they going to put Henry in a position? How are they going to Samus Aran you to where they take away all the cool shit you got and then make you start from scratch again? Or are they going to do that? I don't know. I've got a lot of questions. I'm really hyped for that. Thank you for putting that in the videos.
Yeah, for sure. Thought you want to saw it.
Well, I think that about does it for today's show. Thanks everybody for watching. Wanted to briefly say we're having our council meeting this Friday on potential changes to the show, improvements we want to make. If you've got feedback, send it to thecouchdimension@gmail.com before Friday. And we will consider your feedback. And thanks
Send
for
more
those that
feedback
already have.
Some more feedback that tells Tiny and Red that I need to be allowed to run more bullshit on this show. I haven't gotten to do nearly as much bullshit as I wanted to.
Tell these two idiots that I should be able to make more puns. Send that in an email.
You
Tiny Big
ignored-
Dude should make
You
all the
ignored my
puns.
fantastic portmanteau of Loftus the first time I used it earlier. And you want to get away with puns?
Puns are more clever than portmanteaus.
You gotta give the get.
Anyone can mash two words together. Given, I guess I didn't make pure puns earlier. They were dirty puns, but not in the sense that they were sexual. But that's beside the point. They just weren't purely a pun. I had to stretch it.
You know what?
It's like a
Send in
slant
the letters
line.
that you want sexual dirty puns. Send
Yes.
more.
Specifically put more puns, parentheses, sexual.
I haven't even gotten into an episode where I talk about the intricacies of the Cars universe. Or the fact that I
Hopefully,
saw.
we never
on-
will.
I've gotten a late incoming news story on Steam. I forgot to mention that Cars 2 has apparently been hijacked by people putting tags for everything in there, including not safe for work.
Oh my god, that's fucking amazing.
It's pretty good.
But beyond that feedback, if you want to watch the recorded version of this, you can catch that on YouTube. The channel's TinyBigDude, and you can also catch that on Amazon, Apple, and Spotify under the Couch Dimension. It's a audio format as well, so you can enjoy the show whatever way you would like to. And with that, also we're here live 5:15 on Twitch at TinyBigDude every Tuesday, 5:15 CST PM.
Get excited!
I'm really struggling.
Here, get excited. Next week we're gonna do a relaxed episode, and I'm gonna try to figure out some bullshit for us to talk about. Send in discussion topics that you might want to hear us discuss, I guess. Good shout. We're trying to do some more chilled out episodes, at least borrowing from maybe another podcast we enjoy. Just doing kind of a low-key, fun, chill out episode at the end of every month. And if I have my way, we will assign some homework to each other. And so, if you'd like, probably gonna do some game book report style stuff. If you want to take part in that, I'd love to hear some feedback.
Yeah, that would be very cool to have the audience play along with us. So, we'll be talking more about that next week.
Yeah, that's a big thing I'd like to try to do for anyone who wants to participate, of course.
Well, I have reached the point of the conversation that I forgot why we're here. Red, could you remind me?
We're here because we are trapped here by a wizard in the Couch Dimension.